Today we're going to talk about the size of a cell and how it fits into what we see and know already. On our screen, you can see we're working in millimeters. You see it right here. We know what a coffee bean looks like, or a single grain of rice, maybe even a sesame seed that we've seen on, say, a certain restaurant's buns, or even in the background, a single grain of salt. And the text we know on our packets. If we focus in to the grain of salt, we're now at half a millimeter. And at this point in time, we can start seeing cells. We see one of the larger cells, not the largest, but one of the most common larger cells, an amoeba. These are not the brain-eating kind. These are the common amoeba in water that chase after paramecium and euglena and rotifers. But if you look, we are now in micrometers, 1/1,000,000th of a meter. They're trying to keep a scale up here. If you take a meter stick and cut it up 1,000,000 times, that's the scale we're on right now. You can see, too, human eggs are fairly large cells. As we focus in even further, we can get to a photoreceptor cell. These are the ones in the back of your eyes catching light. Our flat skin cells, our red blood cells, the sperm cell. You can tell there's quite a bit of difference between these two. Sperms are travelers. Eggs need to hold all the food and resources before they implant in the mother. We also have down here then our first chromosome. These are information that resides in the human cell. It's the X chromosome determining gender. If we look, there are even smaller cells. This is E. coli, which is a cell, bacterial cell. These are things inside cells themselves, not inside bacterial cells though. Mitochondrion or mitochondria, as we're talking about multiple, mitochondrion are then what gives us the power, the energy of our cells. Lysosomes, think of a trick word like Lysol, help clean up our cells. If we go even smaller, there are even smaller cells than the big cell parts that are in ours. Now, some people don't say they're cells, some people do. You're going to have to talk to others and we'll argue about it in class. But these are our viruses. If you notice, viruses are much, much smaller than bacteria. We have the measles virus, influenza, or as we call it, the flu cell, HIV, hepatitis, what's called a bacteriophage. It's a virus that attacks bacteria, not us. And the rhinovirus, the common cold. We do have things that, again, are still things that can get and be part of our cells. Again, if you notice, we're now down to the nanometer, 1/1000,000th of a meter. Go in even smaller. We have the ribosomes, part of our cells and many other living cells that make proteins directed by the DNA. Some of them, the proteins they make, like antibodies, amino acids, antibodies, and hemoglobin that help us work. We have RNA, those are bits of DNA that tell the ribosome what to do. We have the amino acids themselves, and here we get to our chemistry unit. Finally, we're past the angstrom, that 10 billionth of a meter, down to the trillionth of a meter, and we come down to our water molecule and our carbon molecule. We're talking about picometers, a trillionth of a meter. Now these are things we've talked about before, so as we compare them to what we know are atom to molecules, which we call amino acids, to the proteins they make, to the parts inside cells and viruses, to more parts of cells and the first tiny, tiny cells of bacteria, to more parts of cells and bigger cells like yeast and red blood cells, skin cells, sperm, eye, and egg cells, living things that work on their own, paramecium and amoeba. And then we leave the world of single-celled organisms to the things we can see.